We will call this meeting to order, the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome, everybody.
Good morning, Mr. Chair.
Can I get approval of the county board minutes?
So move. Second.
Got a motion by Commissioner Johnson, seconded by Commissioner Jelinski. All in favor signify by say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Are there any additions or deletions to the agenda?
Not at this time.
Can I get a motion?
So
to-
moved.
Got a motion by Commissioner Wincher, seconded by
Second.
Commissioner Johnson. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Sheriff's report. Boy, you got on first. What'd you do to pull that?
Pulled some magical strings.
Good.
Morning, Sean.
Morning, Chair, members of the board. So this will be the monthly report for June of 2017. So just to start off with, I usually just share some of the stuff that we share on our Facebook page for Morrison County Sheriff's Office. And in this particular month, June, we did a lot of activities, so I just chose 3 things to basically fill up a piece of paper and explain what we did. The first thing was the Peers Safety Camp for youth. They had some stations set up. They had some fire rigs. We had a SWAT vehicle. We had our boat and water vehicle there, and truck and boat. And basically just did a little bit of education with the kids, showed them what we carry for tools, what we have for gear, let them roam around the vehicle. And in this case, this is the Piers fire rig where they're doing a little class, and same thing, they were able to jump in and out of the vehicle and ask any questions they wanted to. The second picture is Herbie's Bar. Obviously, everyone kind of knows what happened there, or as far as what occurred. That was a significant call for us. We had a lot of manpower and time and hours into that call. We got the Minnesota Fire Marshal's Office involved in that call as well. It has been ruled that it was undetermined as far as what actually caused the fire. And we know that it occurred in the southwest corner, and it was the cooling system that where it originated at. So we're done with that case, but it was significant for us, so I listed that. The bottom picture, that's the Civil Air Patrol. If you remember last year, we had that missing person up in Scandia Valley Township, and the Civil Air Patrol was actually activated, and they assisted us on the ground search as well as the air search. So they had an airplane flying over, and then they had troops on the ground helping us. So they asked for a little assistance this time while they were training at Camp Ripley to do some, basically some entries where they wanted assistance on the training. So we had Bill Vandenhoven, one of our deputies, assist them. And then Joel Gross and I also went out and assisted as well, so.
These are some young people. I was out there and saw them too. I was surprised that, like, young, 15.
Yeah, I think,
15-year-old.
I think some of them are actually 12 years old, so it's a good program. They can volunteer and, to be on this program, and it's pretty much military ran. And it's, it's related to the Air Force, so they teach them how to do different things like ground searches and things of that nature, and it just helped out. When we needed their help, we had a bunch of youth that showed up, and they knew what they were doing, and they were squared away, so we were happy, and it was our way to give back to them.
Sheriff, is there a unit in Little Falls, do you know?
No. And
There
this,
used to be at one time, I do know that.
Maybe.
well, I say no, thinking that
probably
I
isn't,
never
I
heard
don't
of
know.
one, but
Okay.
I don't think
It
so.
was many years ago.
Okay.
Okay.
So, as far as our report goes, our number of complaints for the month of June, we had 932. Criminal complaints, 134 with 98 cases cleared. Our non-criminal complaints was 798. Our drug investigations, I compared this to last year, we're pretty much right on kind of the same course. We had 1 controlled buy, 3 possession of controlled substance, which is methamphetamine, 3 possession of marijuana. Our training, I attended the Minnesota Sheriff's Association Conference, so that was 3 days. We had handgun qualification, and we had rifle qual. So again, because of the post objectives, it's mandated and it's mandatory that we train and qualify annually on our weapon system. And in this case, that's why you see the numbers so high, because it is mandatory. All officers have to go through this training, have to successfully pass the training. So, any questions on any of that? Our criminal complaints, I'll just kind of scroll down the highlights here. If you look at like the 4 or 5 o'clock position, the orange bottom right, 9%, that's disturbing the peace. We had 12 complaints. 7 of those were harassing phone calls. The bottom purple, so it'd be the very bottom, 13%, we had 18 property damage complaints. Let's go over to the theft, which would your 9 o'clock position. We had 29 thefts, and out of those thefts, 9 of them were from building and yards. The rest, a lot of them were gas drive-offs, and the rest were just all miscellaneous. So that's kind of what's going on as far as our criminal complaints. Traffic citations, if you look at the top, we had 14% in the blue. We had 23 speeds, and then of course the bottom green is 59%, and that was 98 verbal warnings. So, any questions on any of that? As far as going on in our jail, we've averaged the month of June 36 inmates for Morrison County inmates. And you can see Itasca County, we averaged 17. So the total inmates average, including Morrison County as well as out-of-county inmates, was 54. Make sure I'm on the same page as you guys.
You tell me where you want to be.
Right there, yep.
Okay.
So sentence to serve, we have Kim Lillimo. She currently took over the sentence to serve crew leader position. Tim Brummer, of course, is our jail programmer now. Things are going good. They just got done with a rec weekend. And I know Tim's got a lot of, he's got a lot of good programs that'll be coming into the jail. And I know he's reached out to a few pharmacists. I'm gonna be going up there myself, getting involved as well. We basically wanna interact with the inmates to see how we can make a better environment. And we want to bring some education back. We know that we have some drug issues. We know that there's a great percentage of inmates in our jail are there because of drug issues. So we're trying to figure out how we can bring some programs into our jail and interact with these inmates and hopefully be somewhat of a help for them. So we can get them back on their feet, get them back to some jobs, and hopefully keep them out of jail. So those are some of the things that we're thinking about and some of the things that will be implemented.
And it's programming not to make the state better or easier, but it's programming to make the state effective and try to help reduce costs eventually when, you know, recidivism isn't as much of an issue, or they're able to be better members of society.
Correct.
So.
Mr. Sheriff, I've spoke with Tim a couple of different times in regards to that. I truly do have to agree with you. He's got some ideas, probably too many ideas, but he's got some very good ideas, I think. So I'm very much looking forward to seeing an outcome as he moves further along with that.
I agree. I think it's gonna be baby steps. I think
Yep.
we implement a
Not gonna be
program at
overnight.
a time and we see how it goes and we keep expanding from there, but we don't wanna get over our heads
Yep.
either.
Yep.
So, you'll see the out-of-county inmates, so the revenue collected for the out-of-county inmates was $28,930 for the month of June. And looking back at June 2016, we collected $22,665, so you can see we got a little bit more gain there, but of course, that's month to month, it's always dependent on what's available, who's available, and what counties are available.
Looks like Scott's doing a pretty good job of going out and looking for people though, so that's good.
Yep, still staying active, you know, making contacts monthly, trying to figure out who's available and if we can house any inmates for extra revenue, and so that's going good. Our 2-year comparison, June of 2016 and June 2017, you can see our total complaints did go down a little bit. I kind of looked into that because I wanted to know why, and it looked like we had a lot of mailbox complaints in that time frame of last year. So of course, if you get, 20 mailboxes that are hit, those are all separate complaints that add up. So there was a lot of mailboxes and other complaints, so that's why the numbers are down a little bit this month. Our criminal complaints went down, our non-criminal complaints went down a little bit as well as our civil process. You can see our drug investigations, I guess we added one this year, and then our inmates have gone up a little bit. So that's basically all I have, unless there's any questions for me.
Good information.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff. Have a good day.
You guys too. Thank you.
Social service.
Good morning. You guys are moving along rather quickly. So Karen is not here yet, so I'm gonna maybe adjust some things on the agenda if that's okay.
Yep.
So the first thing that I will bring forward is a request to purchase a new vehicle. We had our 2013 Chevy Impala was damaged in an accident on Friday, June 11th. And Steve Messerschmidt worked with MCIT, and they are choosing to total the vehicle. So we will get a insurance settlement from the vehicle of about $8,000 and maybe about $1,000 more depending upon how the insurance companies work out the responsibility for the accident. And so we would use that $8,000 and then use somewhere between $13,000 and $15,000 in reserve funds to purchase a new vehicle. I've listed some options down below, but we would like to purchase a vehicle that can be serviced here. And so we are looking maybe at a Jeep Cherokee that is purchased out of Nelson Ford in Fergus Falls.
And it's purchased out of Nelson Ford because it's a state contract.
Correct. Yep, it's a state contract.
Just so people know that
Yep.
you didn't go to Nelson Ford to look for one.
No, correct.
Okay.
Yep, these are all prices based on a state contract through the Management and Budget Office. So I'd request approval to purchase a new vehicle and using capital funds to,
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Okay, we got a motion by Commissioner Wincher, seconded by Commissioner Lemire. Any further
And
discussion?
again, we know that, but just for the record, the accident was not our employee's fault. It was,
somebody unfortunately ran a stop sign in town, and she was actually in the cities that day and was filling up gas in town. So fortunately, it happened here in town and not in the cities having to go pick her up or anything like that, so
no one was hurt. That's the main thing.
that's even more important, yes.
Mr. Chair? Yes. Brad, and I agree with Commissioner Wincher. No one was hurt. As far as I'm concerned, it doesn't matter whose fault it was a crash. Tell me or help me out, what's the downside of buying something used? What's the downside of not buying anything? And how many vehicles does social services operate?
Currently, we have one vehicle because the Impala is now deceased. And so we've had two vehicles.
We had a small service.
Very small. And it is about half as much cost for an employee to use a county car over the life of that car. We depreciate it over 5 years than it is to pay them mileage.
Okay.
We also like to have them use county cars when they're transporting clients or kids,
Okay.
just because of the liability on their vehicles for those types of activities. And then in terms of, going to Rudolph's or Upsala Motors for a used vehicle, they take very good care and refresh their used vehicles. We would need to go out for a bid and do an RFP requesting for the vehicle. That's why we go off the state contracts. We don't have to go to multiple locations to look for a vehicle.
Excellent, thank you.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but if somebody's using their private vehicle and you're hauling kids and other things in, do we have to have a different insurance rate, like a liability on their personal vehicle? You know how people a lot of times have 300,
Yeah.
100, whatever?
We don't, that's up to the employee to work with their own private insurance carrier on the coverage that they are after, depending upon the needs of their vehicle. So, they,
I believe insurance companies would do that out in terms of responsibility if it was something while it was on work time and transporting work.
Yep.
Okay,
We
just a
haven't
question.
had that, so I don't know exactly how that would play out, but that's my thought based on other issues.
And the key is too, that when we said, the crash, it does matter who's at fault or not, because otherwise that insurance will raise our
Yeah.
rates and all that stuff, so that's,
key issue here, and I'm sure our county attorney can attest to that, so.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? If none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
Thank you. Karen, I'd have you come up. We're ahead of schedule, so I started without you.
Morning, Karen.
Good morning. How is everyone?
Good. Thank you.
So today Karen is gonna do a little report on the services her unit provides around financial assistance and childcare. So there is a report in your packet of about 12 pages that she's gonna go through.
He's not sweating anymore because you did show up.
Yeah.
You see, he thought he was gonna have to give that report.
Yeah, that was a very hot day. Okay, diversionary work program. Diversionary work program is set up for families to go to work within 4 months. Okay? If you look at the graph, it shows in 2017, we actually have a total of 7 households, 9 adults, and 12 children. This was in the month of April. What this program does for people is you have to be off of cash assistance for the period of 12 months. If you come back into the agency and apply, you can actually get a job after the program's been approved, and nothing counts against your grant. So you have 4 months to get ahead. Then what they're thinking is after the 4 months, you shouldn't need any additional assistance. Maybe SNAP and medical assistance, but cash, you should be able to be on your own. Does that make sense? Okay. All right, Minnesota Family Investment Program. If they're on diversionary work program for 4 months and they have not gotten a job, they can flip to Minnesota Family Investment Program. Minnesota Family Investment Program is a 60-month lifetime limit program, unless they meet an extension. An extension, we'll go into that a little later. In 2013, we had 87 households. We now have 116. What we're finding with our MFIP caseload is they are our hard-to-serve clients. They have a lot of issues, disabilities. We've been referring them to Social Security, that type of thing. They have a lot of issues with employment. So it's a tough caseload right now for the Workforce Center. And you'll see that the children has gone up quite a bit, 213. Each year it goes up a little more. Those are our households where the grandparents are raising their grandchildren.
If I may, Mr. Chair, is that, the reason it's going up, and I hope this is the case, is because people are becoming more aware of these programs so they can be eligible?
No, I don't think that's the case. I think like the children, the grandparents, I think a lot of them, because of our drug issue, we're seeing a lot of grandparents are taking their kids, grandkids, and raising them. And then they come in and they get the cash in the medical form. A lot of people are having issues as far as, there's so many mental health issues. They're unable to work. Not that they won't be in time, but right now they can't. You have people that get hurt at work, they come in. We've got one gentleman, trucking accident, so he has to have surgery. Will he ever be able to go back to work? I don't know. So,
How is determined how much money you get for these, you know, and I don't know if you wanna tell me what, you know, how much do people, cause I think people presume that you always get a fortune.
okay, if you
You
look,
know.
I've actually got the
Well, we can, if we're gonna
standards.
get to it,
Yep,
okay, okay.
Just one thing I might say about the MFIP caseload of mental health issues, we have been working with Productive Alternatives on a program called Intensive Placement Services, where they have a mental health case manager and a Productive Alternatives supported employment person, and they're working with employers on finding jobs. So we're trying to create services that really support some of these folks that are managing their mental health and that can then stay employed, because this has really been a focus of the state. So Productive Alternatives in our community was lucky enough to get a grant to move forward on trying this new evidence-based service for people experiencing mental health issues.
Mr. Chair, Karen, I'm not even sure how, I'm gonna say that this is gonna come out right. The people that we're talking about here are not people necessarily, more than likely, are not somebody that got laid off from a job, is probably not somebody that's looking for work. The individuals we're talking about that you're servicing here are in need, are physically challenged, probably almost beyond belief, and those that are having really bad mental issues. Or am I saying that, phrasing it the wrong way? I don't know.
50% of them are, yeah.
Thank you.
The rest of them, Judy from the Workforce Center is working with.
Okay.
Once they hit their 60 months, those that can work,
Yeah.
they're done.
Okay,
That's it. They're gonna have to find another way.
okay.
Those that can't work, we can put them on an extension until Social Security can get them approved, something. Until they-
Those that you're putting on an extension, it's not like this is some kind of a, boy, this is a good deal, I can't wait to get on this program.
Right,
These
Yes.
folks are in need of this.
right.
And you'll see how much they're gonna
Yeah.
get for this program, and
It's not much.
just a couple
It's
other things to
not.
put it in perspective of about our 5,000 cases within the financial assistance unit. This is not quite 180, give or take, cases. And so it's the very small percentage of those individuals who are poverty stricken,
Thank you.
down on their luck, struggling with mental health issues or developmental disabilities. And so it's a small percentage, but a percentage that we need to work with.
And then, it shows you how much cash assistance was issued in the month of April. 13, 14, 15, 16, and 17. And then we go on to look at the DWP that was issued, the grant amount. And then we go on to the standards. Okay, the standard of household of one, you're probably thinking, okay, how do they qualify a household of one? Well, they have to be pregnant in order to qualify for a household of one. It's a woman coming in and she's pregnant. She has no income. She comes in, she gets a cash grant of $250 plus the food of $172. Pretty tough to make it on that.
Question for you, how about child support? Yeah, is that included in this, or, because I know if you pay child support, you pay it to the county, and the county pays it
They can get child support.
above and beyond this?
Well, if they get child support, if they get $100,
Yeah.
we disregard 50, but the other 50 goes against the grant. So in her
Okay.
case, if she got 50, she'd get 200.
Okay.
So, yeah. So you pretty much have to live in subsidized housing in order to make it. And you have to apply, if you're responsible for the utilities, you have to apply for energy assistance, otherwise you just can't make it.
So this
So-
is really the only money that they get besides,
The child support.
and
yeah.
assisted living or
Yes.
whatever? Okay.
Unless they're employed. If they're employed on Minnesota Family Investment Program, 50% of the wages is disregarded, which is good. If you make $1,000, excuse me, 500 is disregarded.
Good.
So it pays to work. Any job is better than no job.
So, if I may, if you get housing assistance, I don't know, let's use a number 50, 500, whatever, then they have to pay for some of that, because housing is not paid for 100%.
Correct.
See,
Yep.
that's where people assume, well, I get housing assistance. Well, no. You pay still, and that would come out of this, I'm assuming.
The only way you don't pay anything is if you have no income. Otherwise, you have to pay something. It goes 30% of your income.
But there, so, okay, you answered my question.
Okay, DWP, Diversionary Work Program, 4-month limit. Minnesota Family Investment Program, 60-month unless you qualify for an extension. Extensions are your employment extensions, hard to employ. Limited work due to an illness or disability, you have to have a doctor's statement. The doctor has to state you're unable to work.
Mr. Chair,
Huh?
Karen, can you go back to the full standard cash portion one?
Sure.
Go back to number one. If I understood you right, for number one on the list there, you have to be female, you have to be pregnant.
Correct.
What about a guy that is looking for assistance? There's different assistance somewhere
General
else?
assistance is what he would fall under.
Okay,
yep.
that answer, very
Yep.
good, I'm sorry, thank you.
No, that's okay.
I have a question. You had talked about MFIP extensions. Okay, but it says you gotta have 30 hours per week, but I thought this was people that couldn't get a job.
It is. Your employed extension, if you are actually, actually, that's a good question, because you're right. If you're working a number of hours, you can actually fall under an employment extension also. We don't have too many that fall into that. It's usually the ones that are ill or incapacitated. But yes, you are correct. That is a good question. And I'm sorry, I did
So,
miss that.
so you can work 30 hours a
You
week, one
can,
parent, and
yep.
still get half of that assistance? Is that the half, or is that
You would
kind of
get
the?
Minnesota Family Investment Program, but it would be less the hours you're working.
Okay.
Half of your income would be disregarded, and then the other half is counted against it. But see, a lot of these people now qualify for the housing allowance. That's the other thing. If they're not in a subsidized housing, they get an additional 110 for their housing needs. So a lot of people, they kind of like that 110 if they're not in subsidized housing. It helps. Then
Thank
it's
you.
limited work due to illness, disability extension. That is someone who is only able to work 20 hours per week. Hard to employ, developmental disabled or mentally ill, learning disabled, unemployable, family violence waiver. Now, the family violence waiver, if you qualify for that, the MFIP that you receive is not counted towards the 60-month lifetime limit. But they have to fall within that family violence waiver. You can't just come in and say, I'm claiming domestic violence, okay? You have to have some type of proof. You have to have court orders, police reports, some type of documentation that you are afraid, you're actually afraid. So we just had a client that came in and claimed it, but there was no documentation, nothing. So of course we denied it. And she had already used her 60 months, so you can kind of see where they're. Okay, Morrison County child care cases. 68 cases current in Morrison County. 39 are basic sliding fee cases. 4 are transition year. We have no portability. And 25 are MFIP. Minnesota Family Investment Program, you're automatically eligible for childcare. You have to meet income guidelines when you apply for basic sliding fee. And the income guidelines we'll get to as we move on here. Transition year is when your MFIP is closing, your MFIP childcare closes, and then you go into transition year childcare for 1 full year. And then you're eligible for basic sliding fee if your income is within. Did you follow that?
Question, if I'm a grandparent and I take over my grandchildren, and as a grandparent, you know, I've got a stable job, well, do they still get some type of assistance
It goes on their income for
by the
childcare.
grandparents? Okay.
Yep.
They
That's when-
qualify just like any other parent
Yeah,
if they're caring for their grandchild.
Right.
that's why some of them apply for the MFIP, that pays for
Right.
the childcare, or helps pay for it. Childcare allocations, it's going down every year because we're not using our total allocation. Right now, we're about at 76% of using the allocation.
So the state has a statewide grant that they split between counties, and we each have our own allocation. And we have struggled over the last few years to use all of our basic sliding fees. So if parents are working a job that doesn't pay very well, or they're struggling paying their childcare, this is a program that's available to them. And so anything we can do to encourage parents to come in and apply for childcare assistance would be good.
It's a
It's a
good
good program.
Question, if do you lose the money if it's not used, or does it transfer over to the
No,
next year?
we lose it.
You
Yeah.
lose it, okay.
And they adjust it. If other
Okay.
counties are overspending, they'll let them overspend, things like that. So
Okay.
just to make sure that all the parents have access to
Sure.
employment and childcare if needed.
Okay.
Well, Mr. Chair, Karen, what would you hypothetically say is the reason that it's going down? People aren't
The allocation?
asking? Yeah.
The allocation goes down if we don't use our total allocation every year. Why our caseloads are going down? I don't really know.
Doesn't hardly make any sense because
I
everything
know.
else seems like it's going up.
Part of the challenge might be childcare providers. You know, I mean, I know we're losing some childcare providers. We don't have as many as we used to have. But again, you can pay, you could pay your grandparent, you could pay your parents to take care of their grandkids through this program. If they're able and willing to do that. So there are options if there's not licensed childcare available. There is a legally non-licensed opportunity for families. But yeah, it's interesting, and I think it varies across the state. And I know childcare is an issue for economic development because, of course, if we want to get people to work, they're gonna need childcare assistant, or childcare. So it's kind of one of those challenges I think that communities face when it comes to childcare in general.
Karen, when you were talking earlier about how you only use half of their income, does that work for other programs too? Where if they're working, they can take half of their income and not count that, so it kind of helps them get over,
No, I wish
so
it
it's
did.
kind of a penalized for some of them.
Food support, we count entire gross. Childcare, it's the entire gross. Medical assistance, it's net. So, no, MFIP, Minnesota Family Investment would be the only one. It is, I think what they're trying to do with that program is any job is better than no job. So
Right.
they try to get you to at least work part-time.
That's where I think in this whole system, where it's almost like when they go to work, they get penalized because they start to make a little bit too much, and that's why they don't go to work. And that's where something seems to need to be fixed, where that other program, when you only took half their income, that
Right.
helps them to better themselves and maybe keeps them in the workforce a little better. So,
Yeah.
okay, thank you.
Childcare, though, as we move on here and we look at the guidelines, a two-person household, the entrance level is 30,166, and the state medium income, now that's the exit level. That's quite high for a household of two.
So once they're into childcare assistance, they can continue to get
Right.
pay raises and move up and whatever.
Yep. The co-pay goes up, but it still helps pay quite a bit. You know, they do have a co-pay. Sometimes if your income is really low, it might be $20 every 2 weeks. But as your income goes up, the co-pay goes up. So it's kind of slow trying to get them to be self-sufficient. It's a good program, and it's amazing we don't have more people, because a lot of counties have a waiting list.
So
So-
correct me, so to be into this program, you have to be at 30,186.
That's for two people.
For two people, so that's a mother, daughter.
Yep, yep. And then if
Okay.
you look at the three people, it's 37,264, which isn't too bad. You know, and then if you look at four people, it's 44.
You know, I just look at, it, you know, there's nothing's fair in this world, but like I say, at 30,166, and you have a parent that's making 35,000,
Right.
just wants to go in, they can't, but yet this one that started and works his way up can continue it, you know, so.
But
it's
that's
different.
part of transition.
No, I understand.
Yeah.
Okay, and then the activities, for basic sliding fee, they have to be employed at least 20 hours a week in order to qualify for childcare assistance. Education, we have to approve a plan. They can't just come in and say, oh, I'm gonna go to school, you know, for 6 weeks, and it's gotta be something that's considered, it's gonna be self-sufficient at the end. MFIP childcare assistance pays for employment and education. Transition year, employment, again, must be 20 hours a week, no education. Now, that will be changing in October. They're going to be paying for education. Portability, employment must be 20 hours a week. Education, again, they must have an approved plan. Now, the plan can be approved from us or the Workforce Center.
Yeah, the Workforce Center, Rural Minnesota SEP is a critical partner in working with all of these programs because they are really our organization that supports people trying to get a job. So when they come to our office, as Karen said earlier, they send them over to the Workforce Center, start applying for jobs, looking at what's available, those types of things. And so Rural Minnesota SEP is a pretty important partner in all these self-sufficiency activities. and Karen and her staff meet with them once a month normally, or once every other month, just to go through the caseloads and make sure things are happening, and so. Any other questions for Karen?
Mr. Chair, I don't have any questions for Karen, believe it if you can, but I just have to tell you that this truly is a pretty tough piece of everybody's got a tough job, but this is a tough thing that you have to do. Because you're looking directly in the eyes of someone that more than likely is really in need. And there's only so much, I got it, there's only so much that can be done. And of course, we would like to do as much as we possibly can, but you can't. So I really admire what you do.
Thank you.
I just have to
Thank
tell you, I do.
I'll let my workers know
It's,
too.
that's
Thank you.
it's a tough
We
thing.
clean up nice, don't we?
You do, you very much do.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much.
One other thing under the social service agenda is a request for a position. We talked about this at planning. Melanie and Penny and I were here to discuss this at planning, but we had a mental health professional who left. And we're unique in that we employ a mental health professional in our agency, and this is a position that was required to provide clinical supervision to adult and children's mental health staff. It's still a requirement, and so we are requesting to not employ a mental health professional, but decrease that position to a case manager, which moves it from a grade 32 to a grade 28, and do a request for proposal for the clinical supervision needs of our agency. It's about a $10,000 difference in this position change, and we would, currently the position mental health professional is 70% case management and 30% clinical supervision. And what we found is that if they're a good clinical supervisor, they struggle and don't really want to do case management. If they're a good case manager, they struggle doing the clinical supervision and providing that support to our staff around the mental health needs of their clients. And so when Penny, Melanie, and I talked with the current mental health professional, they felt like this would be a much better plan to contract for those services and hire a case manager to do the adult mental health work. And then the additional 30% of that position would be Minnesota Choices, which we continue to do fairly well in terms of the revenue stream around Minnesota Choices. And the Minnesota Choices intakes and assessments continue to increase given the requirements that the state has set forth in that. So my request today is to move a position within our agency from a grade 32 to a 28 and hire a social worker for that position.
I will so move, Mr. Chair.
Got a motion by Commissioner Lemire,
second.
seconded by Commissioner Johnson. Is there any further discussion?
And just one additional thing, again, just to indicate again that we would do an RFP for the clinical supervision, and then once we have that, we review them and go through them, we would bring a contract forward for that work within our agency.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Brad, at the end of the day, how much more is this gonna cost than it currently is today?
You know, it's an assessment, but I've kind of ballparked it
About.
at additional 10,000.
Okay.
Currently, we're paying about $1,100 a month for clinical supervision because the person we currently have is not yet qualified. So we're providing some support to that. It will be a little bit more than that because of some other needs that we'll have besides the clinical supervision of individual staff, but about another 10,000 beyond what we're in the position difference.
And what we have found with employing a clinical supervisor, if that's the right word, is that as soon as they achieve their degree, if that's the right word, they're pretty much gone, because they
Yeah.
can write their own ticket and go wherever they want to, and, well, we start from scratch again, and we never really grasp onto it. Is that correct?
That's correct. Northern Pines, our mental health provider, our mental health agency struggles getting licensed individuals. They have a support system in place that these folks can do work if they're not yet licensed.
Yeah.
We don't have that support system internally, so they can do a lot more with some of those. But once they become licensed, as you indicated, Commissioner, they can kind of write their own ticket to some degree.
And Mr. Chair, this is one of those areas where we have to respond to what the, market's calling for. It worked well
Oh,
for a
I
number of
know,
years, and we were
absolutely.
able to take advantage of the fact that it worked well
Yeah.
and the specific employees that we had. But if it's unavailable, we have to modify how we do our business, and so
We train
that's the
them and then
proposal.
they move
Yeah.
on.
And that's expensive too.
Yeah, I know.
Well, we have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
Thank you. That's all I have under the social service.
Public health.
I have a couple of things for public health, if Michelle could come up. Yep, you are first.
Welcome, Michelle.
Good morning, Michelle.
Good
So,
morning.
we have a grant resolution. We've received the Towards Zero Death Grant, and so
Yep.
we need to have a resolution signed, so I thought Michelle would just talk a little bit about what we have done and what we're going to do with this
So
money.
we currently have funding up until September 30th. So this grant would start October 1st. And again, it's an annual grant that we have to apply for. It's a competitive grant. And so this grant that we received is $17,029, and it's really, a lot of it is staff time. But there's some stuff that is funded, I think some supplies and stuff, and some grant initiative work that will be supported through the funds also.
And
So,
part of the activity, I think, too, is when we have a tragedy on the roads.
Yep, so we do
Our agency
fatalities.
works with, Public Works on a fatality. what are they-
committee, the fatality committee is what they're called.
Yep.
So they review each, I think every third fatality, then they have, the committee come together and review all the cases.
Oh, I didn't know that. It's interesting.
Yep.
Yep, and so they figure out why it happened and whatnot, so.
See if there's changes to the roadways
Yep.
or to traffic patterns, or, I don't know what they've all, I haven't been to one, so I'm not exactly sure, but
Yeah.
they do assess and make some determinations, but, yeah.
You said your grant went to mostly time. Does it go to advertising and stuff like that, or is that a whole different
It's
thing?
pretty strict of what we can
Yep.
support the funds with. A lot, yeah, we can't really support any funds with the media campaign, that would have to go through levy dollars, so.
And
the-
Sean is applying, the sheriff's
Yep,
department
so
will
he
be
does
applying
the
for one as well.
enforcement part.
Okay,
Yep.
Yep.
okay.
So this is strictly the education component.
Does anybody have, okay, I didn't do a motion on this yet, did I? Okay, I need a motion.
So moved.
I'll
Got a
second
motion
it.
by Commissioner Wincher, seconded by Commissioner Jelinski. Is there any further discussion?
Is this, part of that Towards Zero Death?
Yep,
Do you-
so
they
it's
use
a Towards Zero
information?
Death Safe Roads Grant, yeah. Yep.
Thank you, Michelle.
Any other discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle.
Thanks, Michelle.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Michelle.
And the other thing I have is a request for a 2 AM liquor license for Grub and Pub on Nature Road in Foley. The fee is gonna be $300, but we do not get to keep that fee. It goes to the state of Minnesota, but we do do the license and have the auditor sign the license.
Okay, could I get a motion?
I'll make a motion for more discussion.
Could I have a second?
Second.
Okay, motion by Commissioner Wincher, seconded by Commissioner Johnson.
Sheriff has been notified.
Correct.
Does that mean sheriff has approved?
I would assume so, yes. I don't know that, yes. I mean, I don't know about the 2 AM liquor license in terms of a necessary approval, but if there were concerns, I think he would bring them forth and we would have that conversation. Unlike a liquor license, he needs to approve because of the background checks. So I'm not technically sure if he has to approve the 2 AM.
Was that a discussion that we had when wasn't it down to one or not?
We discussed the 2 AM at some point, I don't remember
But
when.
we never took it down to a one, did we? Okay.
There was a discussion about tools that you have in your toolbox in terms of an establishment that has issues. We have not heard recently from anything at the Grub and Pub that's been a problem. It has been of concern in the past, and you have had that in front of you to debate in terms of what it is you want to move forward.
Does not Ramey, Morrill, is that 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock? Do you know?
I don't know, I know we have 3 2 AM liquor licenses currently that we're aware of, and I'm not sure which other 2 locations have them.
Because the challenge, again, we brought this up, is if the establishment closes at 1, they quick get in their vehicle, drive to the 2 o'clock.
Yeah. That's an option available to somebody at that time of night, or morning, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, I have not heard anything of concern when we notified the sheriff that this was going to be issued.
And
We
that
just-
typically would be what he responds with, and I shot him a quick text message, and I'm waiting for him to respond to that. So I'm trying to come up with something else to say.
But again,
Well,
they
we just-
have to renew this every
Yeah.
year, so if it
Right,
doesn't,
yeah.
Yeah.
there's some.
Yeah.
The only reason I questioned that is I thought maybe we took that back to 1 o'clock.
We talked
And we
about
didn't,
it.
we
We
didn't,
talked
okay,
about it.
that's what, okay.
Mr. Chair, I think this is a little painful for all of us, but the fact of life is that there is a law that says you can have this, 2 o'clock.
Yeah.
The sheriff has been notified. We don't have anything in front of us that at least I don't have anything in front of me that is telling me that I shouldn't be doing this. I mean, maybe we have in the past that could play into something, but the sheriff hasn't said anything. Obviously, I believe if he felt as though there was something, he would be here for that.
I think it's something I'll pay attention to the next time we talk about that.
I'll make a
Well-
motion to approve.
We already did, yeah.
We did.
But hey,
Usually I'm the one that's asking that, Mike.
Good job.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? If none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
That's all I have today unless there's something else. Have a good day.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Brad.
Brad.
Extension. Beth, how are you today?
Good morning, Beth.
Good. Welcome.
Thanks. So far, good. I don't know, it's supposed to get pretty muggy out there, isn't it?
That's why we're in here working slow.
Well, I won't be. I'll be at the Stearns County Fair this afternoon setting up, so I'm not, hence the sleeves that I'm wearing. We've been up to a few different things. Last Friday, actually, we had our Small Farms Tour, and it was down in, near Cold Spring, being a tri-county arrangement that we have with Extension. We moved around to whoever said yes, and Commissioner Jelinski and Commissioner Winter heard about that at our last CEC meeting, but it was very successful. We had around 40 people attend, and so it was an opportunity for people to tour Golden Bee Acres. They have 20 varieties of vegetables they grow, chickens, and then actually they're in a pilot project with industrial hemp. So we had an expert, quote unquote, there who is currently the largest industrial hemp farmer in Minnesota. He has 18 of the 35 acres that were in production this year. So it was a great day. We lucked out. We got in the morning, and I think in the afternoon there were some storms that came through. So I was the quote unquote again high tunnel expert, and so people had a lot of questions, more so about grant funding, which is actually done through EQIP programs with the NRCS office. That's the Natural Resource Conservation Service. And so it was a good opportunity for me to personally kind of share knowledge that I had, but it also was an eye-opener that in the future, wanting to collaborate with that office as well, no matter which county we plan to have it in, so that people can get their questions answered regarding that, which I did see their deadlines are coming up here in August, so I saw that in the paper. And that was one positive thing too. You guys have heard that sometimes it's hit and miss about my things being in the local paper, and that one hit, and we had several people who indicated that they read about it in the Morrison County Record, so kudos to the paper for putting that in. Other things, extension offices this time of the year are nuts. Fairs are coming up, so as I indicated, Stearns, I'll be setting up today. Next week is Benton, and then the following week is Morrison. So we just go one into the next with everything. We have our summer intern, very active. She was this was her baby project with that Small Farms Tour, and so we've got less than a month of her in our offices, and she'll be done for the season. So we look forward to having one in the future. We hope that there's funding there to do that.
Mr. Chair, Beth, can you elaborate a little bit on the intern?
On the intern, sure. Her name is Haley Lighting. She's actually from Fillmore County, so southeastern Minnesota, an ag ed major at the University of Minnesota. And so that was my initial major. And so we talk a lot about going into education in that component as well. But she's just a spitfire and really works hard. So we lucked out this
What would
year.
possess her to come to Morrison County from Fillmore County?
Yeah, way more than what I would have had of his ambition when I was that age. But honestly, just looking for good opportunity. And we pulled her in. She was actually offered a job, an internship this summer in Meeker McLeod. But we pulled her in because we have 3 educators that she would be working with. So myself in Hort, Dan Martins in Crops, and Emily in Livestock. And that swung her vote to come our direction. So that was the tip of being able to be exposed to broader things, and maybe hopefully me having been an ag ed teacher myself for a part of my career also made her think, well, we can have the side conversations of how to apply what she's learning at Extension to being a high school ag teacher one day. I also finally, and I'll be done, but I'm serving on the board for the Sustainable Farming Association Central Chapter as part of my responsibilities, and we are putting a salsa fest on in September 16th. And so I brought flyers for everyone, so hopefully you can attend. I know I mentioned to the commissioners at the CEC meeting that I have BOGO tickets, buy one, get one free, but that little box has grown some legs, and so I have to track it down. Working in a couple offices here, sometimes it's like, where did you put that? But I will track them down, and I will be sure to share with you guys. We hope you're able to attend. It's a big celebration. Everything salsa. Oh, I think I gave you more than what you needed, actually, in that stack, it looks like. Something else off the printer. But everything's salsa, and so it's really celebrating local foods and making sure that we have local vendors from not only Morrison County, but Todd County's been greatly involved as well. And then you can see our sponsors at the bottom too. We've got everything from Extension as well as the Centricare Health Plaza's been very involved too. Any questions?
Did you have something, was that through the university at Holtz's? On the
At
19th?
Holtz's, yeah, so the
Yes.
dairy tour was up at, oh gosh, I don't know what their dairy farm is called, but it was the Holtz Brothers. And so that was last Wednesday? Sounds about right.
Yeah, I was there, yeah. The 19th, or,
52, I think they had, or 53 in
that's about
attendance, so a decent turnout. So it's really nice, and you guys hear that from us a lot. We love to be able to get onto people's farms and educate and exhibit what some great things people are doing. But getting that yes from some farmers to open their doors is the first
Yes.
hurdle. So we're always open ears. If any commissioners here, people who would like to be a host site, whether that's small farms, horticulture-related, crops, fields, you name it, that we'd be open to hearing about it.
okay.
Thank you so
Anybody
much.
have any
Thank you.
questions?
Thank
Stay
you, Beth.
cool.
Okay, land services, Amy,
Good morning.
how are you?
Morning, Miss Amy.
Good, thank you. I have one item for you today, and that is, we've had some discussion at the last planning session regarding the creation of a shoreline specialist position using the funds from our AIS funding and then also from now this new buffer enforcement funding to create this position and have some technical expertise on staff in order to provide that buffer enforcement that we've agreed to do, and then also some other shoreline and riparian related work. So I believe in your packet you had the job description, so I'm happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Mr. Chair, I'll move on this.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Jelinski, seconded
Second.
by Commissioner Lemire. Is there any further discussion?
Mr. Chair, I would just like to add that we did discuss this at length. The money that we're talking about is money that's oh boy, earmarked,
Yeah.
Allocated for,
allocated
yes.
for AIS. And it's coming here. It's ours. I mean, it's from the state sending it. It's not levy money, for once.
AIS and the buffer enforcement money also.
Yep,
Thank
so
you.
two pots of money. that-
Absolutely, and we're able to bring somebody on to do this, which is also gonna help out our soil and water conservation.
Yes.
So I just think it, no matter what, for the period of time, whatever it might be, if the funding ended today, well, then the program ended, perhaps. But it's a win-win all the way around, I think, on this one for us, so.
I have to agree with Jeff on that.
And Mr. Chair, the current level of funding, like Amy and I had talked about at the rate of pay and kind of predicting out benefits, we should be able to sustain a position for a minimum of 3 years or more with
Yep.
the funding that's currently made aware that we know we're getting.
Right.
And the reason, well, Mr. Chair,
No, go
and the
ahead.
reason we went this route is because we didn't want Bowser to be going to our constituents and telling them what to do. We thought it would be better for them in-house.
Well, and that's in keeping with how you've administered all the other programs that have come down from the state, so.
Yeah.
Very good.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
That's all I have.
Thank
Thank
you.
you very
Thank you.
much.
Thank you, Amy.
Good luck.
I'm gonna run down to admin and get this posted now. Thank you.
Suppose you're interviewing downstairs now, huh?
Yeah, I'm going.
Quite that fast.
Public Works, Steve.
County board.
Hold it, just a
County
minute,
board one.
just a minute, then I'm missing something.
Yep.
Oh, yeah, I was looking at my computer. Okay, County Board warrants.
Morning,
Good
everybody.
morning.
Good morning,
I
Deb.
would so move on them with
That's all I
everything.
have.
Yep.
We got a vote by Commissioner Johnson, seconded by
I'll second it.
Commissioner Jelinski to pay all the bills and the warrants, and any further discussion? If not, all in favor? Oh, roll call, yeah, well, that's good. Commissioner Lemire,
Aye.
Commissioner Wincher.
Aye.
Commissioner Jelinski,
Aye.
Commissioner Johnson,
Aye.
and I.
Thank you, gentlemen.
My term will
Thank
be up
you.
again,
Thank you.
I might remember this.
It's easy to forget. You're on a roll, you keep going, it's one of those things that's easy.
Okay, Public Works, Steve.
Good
morning,
morning,
Steve.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board,
Morning, Steve.
everybody. A number of items for your consideration today. The first is one that we've discussed a couple of times during the early construction of our county stated highway system and county road system. When right-of-way was acquired to build the road, oftentimes it varied throughout the length of the road based on the amount of material needed to build the road. You're balancing the amount of dirt to build the road, so you're moving that right-of-way in and out. Currently, what we would normally do in these situations is we'd have a uniform corridor for our permanent right-of-way, and you would buy the excess as a temporary easement, which would go back to the property owners once the construction project is complete. Back in those days, they just did a permanent highway easement for everything, so that permanent highway easement varies throughout the lengths of our roads. So from time to time, we do have requests, and in order for people to better utilize their property and really not affect the operations of our highway system, to relinquish portions of that right-of-way. And this is a situation along our County State Aid Highway 48, where we have this extended right-of-way, and we're recommending that the board would relinquish, in accordance with the map and the resolution that we've drafted, the right-of-way in certain segments along that piece of highway.
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner
Second.
Jelinski, seconded by Commissioner Wincher. Is there any further discussion? I thought I said Wincher wrong or something.
No, I got caught in the drawer.
I could have very easily. Okay, is there any other discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Over the last several months, we have had discussions on the condition and use and demands of the county highway system. I have hoped that I have attempted to provide fair, true, and accurate information to the board on what those demands, traffic demands require, and what the needs of our highway system are into the future. We've looked at revenues and we've looked at costs, and we've projected what those are in sustaining our highway system in the condition that we have it. We've evaluated options to provide for resources to make up the expected shortfalls that we believe we will be experiencing over the next number of years. The board considered the Greater Minnesota Transportation Sales and Use Tax, and in that discussion authorized a public hearing, which we held on July 12th and took public comment. I know that the board there's been quite a bit of media coverage generated by this issue, and the board has heard from your constituents also, which is what this is all about. But now it comes down to your discussion and your consideration and your final say. So I prepared for your consideration a resolution that would implement the Greater Minnesota Transportation Sales Tax on January 1 of 2018, if you adopt it. And I put it out there for your discussion and consideration.
Okay, could I get a motion?
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion for discussion purposes.
And I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Jelinski, seconded by Commissioner Wincher. Any further discussion?
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Steve, for all practical purposes, you addressed through the public hearing, through conversation with the board, with myself, three different choices, three different options, maybe we should call them. One of them would be an option of a levy increase. with the goal of achieving about $1 million. And please jump in and correct me if I'm wrong, about $1 million. One was a levy increase, which would go to every property taxpayer, including businesses and farmers, whatever, everybody that pays property tax. One would be a bond, the bond for that $1 million, which would be, here's $1 million, now you have to pay the interest. Nothing's free, got it. And another one was this local option sales tax, which in a nutshell, about $800,000 comes from local people spending money, and $200,000 comes from people passing through, rough numbers. There is a fourth option, though, of course, and the fourth option, which I think is one that I need to talk about, is to do nothing. And quite honestly, it's not an option that I'm jumping up and down about, but I think it's something that we need to talk about when we're talking about levy, when we're talking about tax, when we're talking about bond. And I need to carry on just a little bit more about this because it's a lot of money. And no matter which option it is that is picked here by the board, it's a lot of money. Doing nothing, in my opinion, puts every commissioner that has ever served here before me, and it's almost like a kick in the head. You showed us at great length, and I know you did, you showed us at length on how our county system evolved. And let's face the music, it started out with the trail. Then it came to be pretty wide county roads, and eventually, all of a sudden, there was a little blacktop that was put on those wide county roads. And throughout evolution, if you will, it just continued, and we have what I want to say is a proud county road system in Morrison County. To throw that county road system away by not supporting it is kicking everybody that has supported this throughout all of these years in the head, as far as I'm concerned. I just don't see, I'm not a fan of what the legislature did. And what they did was they virtually said, well, we're not gonna take the blame. Counties, if you want to improve your roads, here's an option for you. But we're not gonna take the blame. You take the blame from your constituents for taxing. But that's your option. If you don't wanna do anything, they don't care. I mean, that's really what it comes down to, in my opinion again. And I just have to stand back and say that we have an option of nothing. We have an option of the local sales tax, which in my opinion, everybody pays for, not just a property owner through property taxes, but everybody, including those that drive through this community. If we drive through Crow Wing County and spend a nickel in Crow Wing County, we're supporting Crow Wing County's roads. If we do this in Mille Lacs County, we're supporting Mille Lacs County roads. If we do it in Todd County, we're supporting Mille Lacs County roads. And just recently, Stearns County, I believe, enacted the same thing that we're talking about. We will be supporting theirs. It just doesn't seem right that nobody should be supporting ours. And that's all I've got to say at this second. Thank you very much for your time.
Just for clarification, I don't want to put words in your mouth, you said $1 million, but that's $1 million a year.
Yeah, yes, I did.
You didn't say a
Yes.
year?
No, okay.
Yep, okay.
I'm sorry.
Yep, it's for
A
a
year.
year. A
I'm
year.
sorry.
Yep. No, I just want to make sure people understand what we're saying here.
Thank you.
Does anybody else have any other discussion?
I do, and I did a little homework over the past couple of weeks about the sales tax use. I contacted everyone in our district for the countywide to see whether there's support and against it. I'm sure a few of us had phone calls, I did, about the tax. I had one, again, we had a lot of, I'll get rid of that. We had a lot of prominent people here at the public hearing, but my question to you is, Steve, what does it cost 10 years ago? I know you've been here 20 years maybe, but to do a road back then compared to now as far as milling it or something sort?
Well, I guess it depends on the project, but I think if you're looking back 10 years, you probably would see a doubling of the cost of projects. I think I could say that, I'd feel comfortable saying that.
So if you have a road per mile, that's just the Millet Road, it'd be 100,000 10 years ago, and it's 125 now, you know.
I would say, a simple overlay, let's say, was 20 to 25,000, 10 years ago, and now it's 50,000.
Okay.
Or if you know, depending on the project, because, a simple overlay where 10 years ago or 20 years ago may have been the solution to that road is not the solution now. Now, there's more that needs to be done. You need to mill the surface off or reclaim the entire pavement so you get down into the to the gravel base, because those cracks have been there for a long period of time. They deteriorate from the bottom up, actually. They look like this if you actually take a profile of a view of that crack through the road. So as we pile up the bituminous on top of it, it's not the solution, because it takes less time for that to deteriorate than the next project than it does the previous project. So that's why we're doing things differently. We're milling off those surfaces and we're reclaiming more pavements to get down to the gravel and start from the beginning again.
Okay, and then, as far as countywide, Mille Lacs County, they have it, they, did the wheelie, or the regular tax, Crow Wing has done it, Todd County's implemented, Cass County, these are counties just surrounding us. Benton County, they just went to the $20, wheelage tax, so they didn't implement it, but talking to the county commissioners there, the city of Sauk Rapids has it. So when people mention, well, some people may drive to other, counties to save the tax, they can't, unless they go, maybe, I didn't go any farther than our 5 county area. And then, we always allude to like Minneapolis, and I did some homework there. They implemented a 0.5%, they got downtown tax of 3%, they got lodging tax of 2.1%, they got a downtown restaurant 3%. I mean, they got one tax on after the other that just, we don't have that here, and I don't expect us to ever do that. But again, to piggyback on Commissioner Jelinski, this is about as fair as tax that we can do here. And again, as Steve mentioned too, the cost keeps rising. When does it end? Somehow we're gonna have to pay for this. And again, I've had some very prominent people call me, and I talked to them. Most of them are for it. Some of them are against it kind of because of the fact that the brick and mortar is going away. But that, that's with the Amazons, and I mean, how do you compete with those? You can't do that, and that really has a bearing on this. But the nice thing about it is, this can only be used for roads. And I was also explaining, you did a very good job, and I'd like to have you do that one more time, Steve. What happens in 5 years down the road, or 10 years that this program is, we complete all these upgrades to the roads? Does this continue on, or do we, maybe you'd explain that a little better?
What is available to the board for the use of the revenues generated from this tax, if, let's say a project came up that you hadn't contemplated that we have not included in the list, you could hold a public hearing and you could add that project to the list. There could be something around town around the city of Little Falls on a county road system. You can make those adjustments as you go forward. The project list that we have right now, once these are funded and completed, and that list is done, the tax ends. It is over. Unless the board then goes through this process again, you would hold your public hearing, we'd see whether there's projects that we didn't have enough funding for, and you would go through and adopt this same thing forward. Currently, the resolution terminates when our project list is over, or 10 years from now, whichever comes first.
Thank you. I don't have any more information, questions at this time.
Does anybody else have
My-
any?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, and I'm the opposite way. I've got beat up good. I got a lot of phone calls, people on the street, when is enough tax? I know this is another tax, but, I wanna see good roads too, don't get me wrong. But maybe we just have to do it on the levy. So, that's all I can say.
Does anybody else have anything?
I'd like to say something, Mr. Chair. And first, I appreciate all of your work you did on this and explaining to us, and you were unbiased. You just presented the facts and let them be, and I appreciate that.
Thank you, Mike.
I'll be voting no against this because there's two reasons. Fundamentally, in the Minnesota Constitution, funding for roads, it comes from motor vehicle sales tax and the gas tax, and it's helps counties fund their roads. And the legislature knows full well that transportation is one of the most important issues affecting counties. And instead of them making the hard decisions, they're passing the buck on the counties. It's got to be an accounting nightmare within the state of Minnesota with all the different sales tax rates. Minnesota has already one of the highest sales tax rates, and it makes us uncompetitive with neighboring states, and also it affects our retailers with internet sales. Fiscally, I'm opposed to this because not too long ago, the wheeler's tax was passed. That was a $350,000 tax that takes money out of the pockets of our citizens of Morrison County, and this will take another, granted it's gonna make $1 million, but it's gonna take another $810,000 out of the pockets of our citizens of Morrison County. But again, thank you for everything that you did in presenting this to us.
But one more comment I got, like what Commissioner Lemire said, is I'm just, of having the two, the wheelage tax and the other one, I'm just not favorable.
Okay, well, I guess it's my turn, and I agree with what you guys have all said. Here's the list of the projects we've got. There's 54 projects. If the legislators are not gonna fix these roads if something don't happen here. And I think what they did do is they gave us the opportunity to do a sales tax. And if they give us money down the road and these projects are completed, that sales tax will be gone. So if that would happen to be gone in 3 years, the sales tax over. Nothing can be added to this list unless it's voted on for an additional sales tax, correct?
You would have to hold a public hearing and then adopt a new list.
Okay, so then the options, well, let me back up here a little bit. In 1992, we did a bond issue for $1,275,000 to do roads. In June of 2002, they did a bond issue for $3,250,000 to work on roads. And July of 2006, they did a bond for $1 million to work on roads. So I don't see this any differently than being, I would think we'd be sitting here looking at a bond, because you have showed us that we are $9 million behind to complete these projects. Otherwise, the projects are getting longer. On this list, you have the years since the roads have been done, and we're starting to get out there a little farther than what we always wanted to do. Now, to pay for that, we have the levy, we have the bond, or we have the sales tax. And in my eyes, the sales tax cost our taxpayers $800,000, more or less, instead of $1 million. So that's saving them money when we have gone out and bonded for other things in the past to do the same projects. When it comes to the wheelage tax, there was some discussion on that, but the wheelage tax, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but the wheelage tax money can be used for if we have a culvert that goes bad or we have things that come up, we can use that wheelage tax. We cannot use any of this money for the things that we use the wheelage tax on, because this money is for specific projects that's on this list.
The sales tax has got to be applied for capital costs of those projects. The wheelage tax could be applied to those projects, but not the reverse.
Right, but we couldn't use that, if we use that money on those projects, then we couldn't use it for the other projects that come up when we have like the rain
Right.
and the
We-
culvert
we-
gets washed out, that's where our wheelage tax money went to.
It's still going towards those things.
So, with what everybody else said, I'm gonna be in favor of this because I feel that it's the best way. I don't think doing nothing is an option. Otherwise, our roads are gonna get farther behind. You've given us a timeline on where the road's at, and we're falling behind on that already. And by waiting, I feel we'll get behind farther. And I feel that this is the best way, and I have talked to a lot of business people. And the thing that I really like about whether the state did things or they didn't do things, they gave us the option of the sales tax. And the sales tax to me is the most fair tax. The farmers the business people, the high-income property, they don't get hammered with this tax here. It's a fair tax that everybody that buys something pays a half cent. And I feel that's the fairest way to go here. So, is there any other discussion? If not, I guess we'll vote on this.
I have one more question to Steve, and you brought that up. What happens if we don't approve this? What do you think would be 5 years down the road happen, in your opinion?
Well, what else can I do? We'll make do with what we get. We push our projects out. We probably won't do what we need to do because we'll Band-Aid them somehow, but at some point in time, somebody is going to have to pay the piper.
And Mr. Chair, you know, I've been here for the last 9-10 years in this position, and we've had very clear direction to do what we can to make sure that we're keeping the levy as low as possible. And so, that's always tough when we come to bring you a budget, when we come to propose what it is we're gonna need for the next year and how to fund operations. And it's been very conservative the last number of years, and making up for that with levy dollars is tough because there's a lot of costs that increase throughout the organization. And so with that direction, you know, it's kind of all of it coming down in terms of the dollars available to run the operation. And the direction has been in the recent past to keep that low. And so that means not spending as much. And so that means then putting projects farther out because the dollars aren't there. And so that keeps happening. And so I think that's what, like Steve said, we'll do what we need to do with that, and it'll just maybe draw things out a little bit longer, or we're going to have levy increases that are higher than what you're used to in the recent past.
And if I may, Mr. Chair, I'm gonna support this, and I say, what it really, a big problem as far as I go, is when people kick the can, and I just despise that, when our state legislators and that sort, well, let's just see what happens next year and the next year. Again, like Steve iterated, we have to do something, and it's now, or let's let the other county commissioners down the road deal with this. Someone's gonna have to deal with it, and I think this, again, is the fairest way.
Mr. Chair, I agree. I'm not gonna kick the can down the road and wait for somebody else to take care of this. I am absolutely no different than anybody else sitting at this table. Man, if I didn't have to pay sales tax ever again, good grief almighty, I wouldn't be paying it. Either would anybody else. We'd all stand up and say hallelujah. We don't have to pay sales tax. How does it get done if you don't? I don't know that any of us are prepared to say, well, I'll tell you what, I'll just write out a check and give it to somebody, I'll give it to the treasurer, give it to the auditor, and, take care of it that way. It's not done that way. This stuff has been set up, the tax system, by somebody with a whole lot more on the ball than me, and I'm not agreeing with what the legislature did in giving us this authority. I think they should have taken care of it. The fact of life is they're not, and we have to do something. That's how I feel about it.
Well, you know, when I go through, it's been about every 10 years we've had a bond for highways for improvements. And this is no different. And I guess I have to thank the legislation for giving us the opportunity to do a sales tax, because I think it's not on a property tax, and I don't know why property needs to pay for roads. And so I think it's a fair way. And the other part about that is that if they come across some money in the next couple of years and these projects get done quicker, the sales tax goes away. And I think it's right that we have to vote on specific projects and money to do that. I think a lot of people, they think that when money comes in, it's for a road, then it gets spent for something else. This is for these roads, it's for these projects, and that's all it's for. But I want to thank every one of you for your comments. I appreciate the fact, I don't care how you vote, you at least explain to people why you're doing what you're doing, and I think that's all that we owe.
Could I add one more thing, Mr. Chair? Deb brought up a good point about the budget, and it's obvious that Public Works Department has been shortchanged over the years. Otherwise, this $10 million shortfall didn't just happen. It's been a long time coming. And that's all I wanted to say.
Just a comment, Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Lemire, that I think there is some truth to that, but at the same time, we have, as an organization, the County Engineers Association have been lobbying heavily for additional resources at the state level that have not come. There was no transportation bill for the last several years, finally one this year that was quite a bit less than I think what people were expecting. And so some of the reasons for what you're maybe seeing is because we were expecting that they would carry their weight and they haven't.
Thank you for that.
I also think a lot of that is the price of doing a road, and the way you're building them today is so much greater than what you used to do, so that price is going up. And I know as far as public work goes, you came last year and looked at it, brought us a used truck that was in good shape, and it saved us $200,000, if I'm not mistaken, by buying that truck instead of us having to purchase a new one down the road. So I think you've done a great job on what we're looking for, and I thank everybody for their comments. Okay, this is a roll call vote. Mike, I'll start with you because you're on the end. Commissioner Lemire.
No.
Commissioner Wincher.
Yes.
Commissioner Jelinski.
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson.
No.
Commissioner Wilson, yes.
Thank you,
So
Mr.
it
Chairman.
passes on a 3-2 vote. And thank you very much, everybody. What do we got next here?
I think I have another item for your consideration.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, as you're well aware, we have been at issue with the Department of Military Affairs on the application of the solid waste ordinance at Camp Ripley. On July 6th, the Honorable Judge Weiler did issue a temporary injunction enjoining the Department of Military Affairs operations for their existing transfer station and demolition landfill facility, provided though that would be stayed if Camp Ripley, or the Department of Military Affairs, I should say, made application and the county board issued licenses for these two facilities. The Department of Military Affairs have come forward and made application for the license of these two facilities. The Minnesota Pollution Control Agency and Public Works staff inspected their facilities last week. We found them to be in compliance with the Morrison County Solid Waste Ordinance. And so at this point in time, we would request that the county board would authorize solid waste facility licenses for each of these facilities to the Minnesota Department of Military Affairs. And if you would request those individually, so we have a record that each, the transfer station as one and the demolition landfill as the other.
I'd make a motion on the first one.
Okay, we got a motion on the transfer. We got a motion on the transfer station by Commissioner Johnson. We got a second by Commissioner Lemire. Is there any further discussion? If none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Now the demolition
I'll make a
facility.
motion on the second authorization.
Okay, we got a motion by Commissioner Wincher, seconded by Commissioner Lemire. Is there any further discussion? If none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And then finally, I would like to request establishing a planning meeting with Public Works for sometime towards the end of September.
August, September.
What about the 25th on a Monday?
25th would work for me.
After our planning,
No, it's,
25th is a Monday.
oh, that's Monday.
we got a,
Okay, unless we
I
want to
don't
do
know.
it on
Oh,
Tuesday, the 26th.
no, planning, I'm thinking, this is
No.
the one at night.
Right.
Yeah, planning and zoning. So, no, that's fine.
The 25th?
Is that
8:30
okay?
at Public Works?
Okay?
Is that where you want? I didn't agree. Is that okay with everybody else?
Public Works at 8:30 on the 25th of September, Monday.
That work?
Yep.
Very good, thank you.
Public Works, 8:30. I'm a little slow here, so.
Get one of these.
Yeah, you're right.
That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Thank you very much,
Thank
Steve.
you.
Thank you,
Yep.
Steve.
Thanks.
Okay, let me see, I gotta get back to my agenda here. Next, we've got Administrator's Report. Deb.
Mr. Chair, I don't have any formal requests for action at this time. Just busy as usual. We met yesterday with the electrical engineer and the construction management group regarding security systems, cameras, things of that nature. And so project continues to progress. We need to make more decisions in order to be able to get more detailed bidding documents. And so we can get another estimate that's out there to make sure we're within budget for that. This coming Saturday, there should be work done to remove that tower over in the west, kind of southwest part of the government, like the historical courthouse there from that end. And then after that, sometimes this season, I don't know exactly when they're going to start, but we did award that bid for the construction of the parking lot on the west end of the complex there also. So continue to move forward with that. We will call together a full building committee and a report to the county board once we get that next estimate done. Pete Dunphy from Contagrity Group is working on that, and hopefully in a couple of weeks, that work will be done so we can present to you where we're at with estimates going into this next kind of level of planning.
Deb, you don't have to carry on, but was it cameras system?
We talked about security, various security components,
that's good
bag
enough.
reading systems, cameras,
Beautiful.
where they're needed or where it would be best suited. Again, everything's going to be subject to budgets
Yep.
where we come
Yep.
in, but we want to kind of get a plan for that.
Thank you.
Sergeant Gross is the one helping to provide that law enforcement and security eye
Very
with
good.
that. Sheriff Larson was able to commit his time, so I appreciate that.
Thank you.
So we're continuing with that. How many, we had a request, or there's a discussion about a booth at the county fair. Are many of you gentlemen planning to be out there as far as staffing that? We kind of had questions, wondering if that's something you see as a value add for the organization, or what you, if you had thoughts on.
I think it's a great value to have a county booth at the county fair.
And having various pieces, because sometimes I think there's different departments that are out there, and to man something in its entirety is tough. And on
Absolutely.
weekends, it's tough, and I don't know if it's, an overtime cost or how we work all that stuff. So, I mean, we're kind of careful about that. But if you were out there and the booth is out there, I wanna let you know. We'll send you the information about what we learn and where it's at, and any participation you can provide, great. Let you know that you're more than welcome
Doesn't
to
public
help.
health usually have a booth out there? That
Sometimes
kind
public
of-
health, the sheriff's office, the veterans office, there's a number of different components. We're trying to
Yep.
maybe make that one, and so it's not as much staff time for a commitment out there, because it is hard to commit to a lot of hours. I think we looked at it, it was probably, how many hours? 4 days of time.
Is it fair like the 9th of August to the 12th?
I believe that's
Okay,
it.
thank you.
So, anything that you, if you had anything in particular as far as ideas go, that's, I guess, what I was looking for. I know you've all spent more time out there than I have, so if you
You
think
know,
of
I
something,
guess
let me
one of
know.
my suggestions would be if, let's say public health
Thank you.
is there, if there's some groups that are here from the
10, 11,
county,
12, 13.
maybe we should know that, and maybe we could take some time where we maybe go into their booth and spend some time to visit with people if they want us to. I don't know exactly which booth they're there from the county.
Yep, and if we
So-
combine one, we'll look for kind of almost a schedule of staffing it.
Yep.
So maybe if you know you're going to be out there or willing to maybe take some of that time, that would be great too. So, especially I think the weekend hours where
Yep.
staff may not be as
Be more
available
than happy to.
for that. So we'll let you know what we come up with.
Okay,
All right.
thank you. Is
I
that
don't
it?
have anything else unless there's anything anybody's missing from me.
I have something
All
very
right.
important.
All right.
I think most of us here were part of the apple tree, right?
Oh,
We
yes,
voted
yes,
for that,
yes,
you know,
yes.
so, anyway, they just received a grant from the Department of Health here in the last couple of weeks. Again, I don't know what the dollar amount is, to do training, and guess where they're gonna do the training? Here in Little Falls, so that should open it up a little bit more for apple trees, so.
For employee training for, good.
Yep, so that should help a little bit.
Mr. Chair, on Apple Tree, I went for a tour one day at the hospital, but anybody wants to go down there, just the days they're here,
And
feel
the
free.
training, actually, the training will be done at the Tri-County Community Action, because they got a dental thing there, I guess, so. That's good news.
Okay, thank you. We will go through our calendars.
See you, everybody.
See, Brian,
See you, Brian.
Commissioner Johnson, would you like to go first?
is it 31st through the 12th?
It is the 30th, July 30th through August 12th.
Okay.
July.
On the 1st, we have planning here at 8:30, budget at 1 PM here. On Thursday, the 3rd, I have the South Country Health Alliance trying to think of the media, can't think of the word.
Public health? I
No,
mean,
our, compliance committee meeting at 8 o'clock in Owatonna, and a South Country Health Board meeting at 9. On the 4th, 8:30 at the landfill, T-SWAC. On the 8th, we have board at 9, budget at 1, and I don't know how I'm gonna do it, but I got a Region 5 board meeting in Staples from 11:30 to 1:30 that day, so we'll see what happens there. And right now, on the 9th, at Joint Powers in Staples, Commissioner Wilson and I have a Tri-County Health Board meeting at 3 o'clock. I have a Mississippi Headwaters Board comprehensive plan meeting, and at the Land Services in Brainerd on the 10th at 11:15 to 1:15. And then the fair. That is all I have.
And we went to what date?
Hey,
Did we stop on the 12th? Is that where we ended up?
yep,
Okay, okay.
yep, 12th or 13th, whatever.
Commissioner Jelinski, would you like to go next?
Certainly.
I have August 1st.
On the 2nd, at 11 o'clock in the morning, I have executive committee with Armor in St. Cloud. On the 3rd, at 10 o'clock in the morning, I have a legislative conference call. I take care of that at my house. On the 9th, and I think I'm missing something from somewhere, but I don't know. National Night Out is on the 9th, and I think that starts about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And at 6 o'clock that
Jeff?
evening,
I think it's the first.
I have it as the first.
all right, I knew I had something wrong. Thank you. You're 100% correct. Sorry.
No problem.
On the 9th, at 6 o'clock in the evening, meeting room 1, I believe, who was putting this on? I can't remember. The sex trafficking video that's gonna be put on at meeting room 1. I think it's open to the public, and that's at 6 o'clock in the evening. On the 10th, at 5:30, I've got a trails meeting at the fort, and that is also the opening of the fair.
Are you gonna be calling the milking?
I'm thinking that I probably am gonna call the milking contest, which I think is on Saturday, but I'm not positive. I'm expecting that I'll be at the fair probably all 4 days at one point or another. That's all I've got.
Commissioner Winchell.
Board of Adjustments.
Pretty much covered. The question I have, maybe Deb, is that meet with the 407 civil affair, are we gonna bring that to board, or are we gonna be doing
That's,
it?
if you recall, Major Mitch Johnson came with a couple of other soldiers. They're working on training for their civil affairs unit. And so they're reaching out to talk to
Right.
different people. That's something you can choose to participate in. And they're just kind of looking to learn how to interact with people in the community, elected officials and such. And so that's kind of a, just your role as an individual
Yeah.
commissioner that you're helping out in that regard, not so much Morrison County as an organization, if that makes sense.
Makes sense to me.
All right.
And then,
Andy, I've got it set up at 9 o'clock
Monday?
on August 7th.
7.
Yeah, they're
Okay.
coming
Yep,
in,
so
they come in
if
over
somebody
the
would
weekend.
if somebody else would come,
It's open to the public, all that sort of, assuming.
Well,
Well,
it's
it's
just,
just an
it's just,
individual meeting, it's
Yeah.
not a full convening of the board, there isn't any type of.
Yeah, I
like,
got
Mike
it.
and I
You
did
come-
it
I got it
a
all
month
day.
or so
No,
ago,
I got
2
it.
months
Yeah.
ago.
no.
You're just on the list now.
Mitch Berger and I are coming here to talk.
And then the other thing is,
When?
the department head meeting on the Wednesday, the 9th. Otherwise, took care of me on those.
Mike?
Hey, you got me, Mr. Chair.
I think I'm all covered too, except the Camp Ripley thing. That was Mitch Berger and then that group that came for training.
Mitch
Mitch
Johnson,
Johnson, Mitch
and
Johnson.
it's not really Camp Ripley, the civil affairs thing, or are you talking about something else? With actual Camp Ripley?
Well, just a second
Is
here.
that the 407th you're talking
Yeah.
about?
Yeah,
That's
not-
civil affairs.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's a civil affairs unit,
out of Arden
and
Hills.
it's Mitch Johnson, but.
Yep.
Mitch Johnson?
Actually, it could be somebody else, one of his soldiers could be the one that was.
Okay, I don't know.
And they're coming to the courthouse? Is that what you said?
We're gonna meet here on the 7th at 9 o'clock. So
Oh.
if somebody, it's for their training, but
Okay.
they just want to kind of interview and talk to
They've
officials.
already met with you, haven't they, Dwayne?
Yeah, once, and I'm meeting with Mitch that day in Swanville all day.
Oh, okay.
Mitch Johnson and Emily, can't think of her last name, a
They're
veterinarian.
different
Yeah.
unit members
Yeah.
with different assignments
Yeah.
and different tasks and such that they're
Okay.
completing.
And one last thing, Mr. Chair, I think Board of Adjustment was missed
It was.
on the first,
I was gonna ask that.
on the first at 7
Board of
o'clock.
Adjustment's not canceled.
I know I got one of my districts
Planning
on that
Commission was
night.
canceled just the other day.
Is there,
And
do
also-
one of you have a RAC meeting on the 11th?
It would be me, and I'm not going to be able to attend that because of the fair.
Okay.
And I also made a mistake on the 2nd,
Mike Berger.
where I told you that 11 o'clock, we had that executive committee meeting. That's been changed to the
Mike
16th.
I saw
this
that on your
month.
calendar, so I
It's
didn't
been
have it on mine.
changed, so thank you, but that can be erased.
Okay,
So the Board of Adjustments, what day is that gonna be?
First.
First,
At
first of
7 o'clock.
August.
There's 3 items on.
Yeah,
And then your Hands of Hope picnic, is that in other county?
that's in Swanville. I probably put it on my calendar, I don't even know when that was.
The 8th,
Where at?
It's in Swanville at the,
you want it listed?
no, I probably won't be able to make that. Have a whole picnic in Swanville at the,
Oh,
At
at
the,
this
uh,
park.
I just might need
Park.
more information on the
Yeah.
civil affairs.
It's their individual meetings, they're not a board.
It's right
So,
here.
no, so it doesn't
No,
need
it
to be on
doesn't need
public
It's
notice?
right here. yeah.
Okay, so I'm taking it off the public notice.
Okay.
Motion to
The
adjourn.
training
Second.
exercises.
Got a motion by Commissioner Winter, seconded by Commissioner Johnson. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. 10:35, we'd have been on